Woof! Many notes. So many notes. Folks, how you doing? It's the Monday Guitar Show. My name's Nick Jennison. I am your host. We are back. It's Monday. We do the thing that we do on Mondays, which is hang out and talk about the guitar. And today, we have a very special guest who I shall be introducing to you very, very soon. It is, of course, Pablo from the band DeWolff. You guys know them. You guys love them. We love them too. We'll be talking all about the new album, Shoals. We'll be talking about tones, all that good stuff. We're going to have some guitar playing advice for you guys too, hopefully. So if you've got questions, get them in. We're also going to be continuing our discussion on the topic of ear training later on in today's stream, where we're going to get into the sticky question of whether or not you, and by this I mean you, dear listener, whether you can actually hear what it is that you're playing, whether you're actually listening while you're playing, or whether you're just playing and letting the fingers do the walking, so to speak, if that makes sense. So we'll get into all of that. We're going to give you guys some tips on how you can get better at all that sort of business. But before we do, a couple of quick welcomes. First of all, if you're a new viewer, welcome on board. It is lovely to have you. We do this every Monday. We hang out, we chat about the guitar. We have a great community of guitar players worldwide who are tuning in from all over the globe. It is absolutely tremendous to hang out with you guys every week. It really does make my day. If you're a new viewer, make sure you join a little community by hitting the subscribe icon, which is located somewhere down here. I don't know where YouTube puts it these days. It's somewhere around this way. It's not the Lego play button, which is right behind me up here. Although that was pretty cool, to be fair. I like the Lego play button. Also, don't forget to smash that like button, as Ergo Hog has rightly pointed out. And also, if you have a question, don't forget to drop it down below. If you're one of a returning cadre of streamers who are with us week upon week upon week, we're going to say hello to you now. Let's see who is in the house. First things first, Response Audio was the first through the door at 4:56 p.m. That is not quite a new record, but it's pretty close. Says, hi Nick, hi guys, hope you're having a great Monday. I am in fact having a great Monday. I am dog tired today, man. It has been a crazy, I don't know how many weeks. We had Blitzkrieg album launch just gone on Friday. That was killer. It's a lot of fun. Nice to play in my hometown for once. Yeah, really, really cool. I'm absolutely knackered, but I'm happy that we're hanging out talking today to you guys today. Really excited to chat to Pablo as well. We've been talking off camera. He's a great guy. guy, fantastic player. The new album is to die for. We're going to talk all about that, and of course there is some beautiful Firebird erotica coming your way. I won't say the other word because YouTube will demonetize us and we don't want that. Marcin is in the house. Marcin, it's lovely to have you. PJ is here. Timothy Appling is in the house. Great to have you on board. Helmet Strap is tuning in, as is Larry Warren, Sacred Godslayer, who is going to be receiving a couple of sets of the Silver Slinkies that we had yesterday. Now, sorry, last week. Last week we did a stream. We gave away some strings. And we actually have a couple of sets kicking around. So in addition to Brian, who won the tin, we have 2 more sets. We're going to be sending them Sacred Godslayer's way for asking the tied for best question. If you're wondering what on earth I'm talking about, go catch last week's stream. You can see it on the replay. Foghornish is in the house. Says, Nick, in answer to my question last week, my dad lives, and indeed his hometown isn't far from you, and between Whitley Bay and Blythe. Well, my studio is in Whitley Bay, and I'm from Blythe. It sounds a bit like Satan Devil Hand. I know exactly what you mean. There's a lovely big hall there. Well, what do you know, man? Small town. Small world, rather. Small world. I'm also very shocked about the news about Jakey Lee. We're super glad that he's well. He's going to make a full recovery. Get well soon, Jake. Yeah, man, that is just some fucking crazy news. Couldn't quite believe it when I heard it, but everything's going to be okay, so all is well with the world. Deb Manduki Van Dugerson is tuning in. Mike Seedorf is here. Ergo Hog, as we previously mentioned, is in the house. Chris Davis is in. Kagipso, whose name I'm going to butcher, is here. Outstanding playing as always, Nick. That is very kind of you. Probably the opening solo from Nick I like the most in the years following the Monday streams. Well, that is really kind, man. I am in full shred mode because we've been doing the heavy metal thing lately, and you gotta have your shred chops on, otherwise people will complain. People flew from all over the world to see the shred, apparently. So there we go. Pretty cool. R.I.P. Paul Diano. I couldn't quite believe that when I saw it today. So Paul, lovely dude. We had the pleasure of sharing the stage with him a number of times. He was a great guy. A very, very sad loss. So yeah, man, unbelievable. Just like, what do you say? What can you say, man? PJ says, I can't play anything unless it's already in my ears/brain. If a note is in a wrong place, a wrong piece in my head, it comes out equally wrong on the guitar. Very interesting. We like a bit of that. So anyway, that's some hellos. If you are tuning in for the first time, don't forget we're taking questions all the way through today's stream. If you've got a question about ear training, let me know. If you've got a question for our guest, who we're going to say hello to in just a second, don't forget, we want to hear from you. But without further ado, while I put my teeth back in, we're going to say hello to Pablo Van Der Pol from the band DeWolff, who is joining us from the Netherlands. Pablo, hi. How you doing, man?
A jolly good evening. I'm doing good enough. Good enough.
That's what we like to hear, man. So, listen, we're really glad you could join us, man. You got some beautiful gear sitting around you. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But before we do, man, you got to introduce us to this Firebird that is on your lap. So, tell us a little bit about the fiddle you're playing today.
So, this beauty is a guitar I've been wanting to have for such a long, long time. So, I've used the Firebird. It was a reissue for a long time, and I wanted a vintage one for years, and then a friend of mine who's also a vintage guitar dealer had this one on his wall. It's a 1965 Firebird 3 that had been broken in half at some point. This whole wing was broken off, and the headstock had broken, so it was like within my reach, like financially. And I played it, and I was just like, it was the best guitar I ever played. And I said to him, like, dude, I want to buy this guitar from you. And he's like, no, man, this is my favorite guitar. I will never sell it. And then I just bugged him for weeks and weeks. And then he sent me a picture of a Firebird 7 he got in. He's like, maybe this is something for you. I'm like, no, man, you keep the 7. I'll take the 3. And then he finally went overboard, and he was like, all right, let's do this. And now I'm the lucky owner of this 1965 Firebird 3.
That is super cool, man. Like, I've never heard of a Firebird being broken in half before. Like, that is new to me, man.
Not this way, right? I mean, a lot of them break at the headstock, because when you put this in its original case, this banjo tuner, it touches the case. So if you put the case down a little too hard, the head will just come off. So this had that same problem, but
Man. Okay, yeah, that's a bad bit of case design, but I do love the banjo tuners, man. Like, it's it's a really ergonomic setup as well. Like people, I think people who haven't played Firebirds will maybe spend some time with an Explorer or a similar kind of like large-bodied guitar. You may be not prepared for how comfy and ergonomic Firebirds are. I've got a lot of love for them. I don't own one.
It's really nice.
I've wanted one for a very long time, but that is super cool, man. So the new album Muscle Shoals is out now, if I'm not mistaken. I've had a chance to listen to it over the last few days. It is absolutely killer, as we'd expect. You know, we love the band.
Thank you. Well, it's going to be out on December 6th.
Oh,
but there's some singles. There's some singles that are out like next week, and one came out a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the process of putting the album together, man, and tell us a bit about the recording process too, because the tones on there they're stellar, like really great. Let's maybe start with the writing process.
The writing process. So back in 2022, we were touring with the Black Crowes, and Chris Robinson, the singer, offered to produce our next album, this album, and we were like, oh my god. The Black Crowes, Chris Robinson is going to produce our album. And we tried to make that work. Like, I got his email address, and at one point I kind of had to like corner him and say like, okay, Chris, I really need to know, can we do April and May 24? And he's like, sorry, I can't do it. I have this tour with Aerosmith. So then it was like time for Plan B. And this had been something that's been on our minds for many years, like recording at the fabled and legendary Muscle Shoals Sound Studio and Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And this whole plan like came together in a matter of minutes. We just sent an email to the Muscle Shoals Sound Studio and to the board, and they have to like say if you can record there or not. And they were like, yeah, sure, come on over. We have time available in May. And then through our contact, Dylan LeBlanc, who's a great artist himself, we got a contact from Ben Tanner, a local producer, who's the keyboard player for Alabama Shakes, but he's also produced some Grammy Award winning albums. And we got in touch with him, and he's a local guy. He made the whole thing work. And then in May, we went over there. So this all happened in a matter of months. And yeah, we'd been writing material since, I guess, August 23, I think. That's when we started writing. And, you know, sometimes we get together here at our studio in Maastricht. And sometimes it's just me at home, recording any idea I have. And then we come together here and we arrange the heck out of it.
Man, well, I mean, hey, whatever's going on there, it's certainly working, man. But like, so in that case, then, did you guys turn up to Muscle Shoals with everything kind of like fully formed? Was it, did you have the album when it was written and you knew what you were going to do, or was did the atmosphere of the place kind of change a little bit?
We really wanted the atmosphere of the place to allow for some, changes or lyrical inspiration or whatever. So we some songs were kind of finished, like 90%. Some of them only like 50 or 60%. And, and what is finished? Like, for example, we never, how do you say that? Arrange our solos or whatever. So it's, and I really like to play solos like in the live take, because when I go into overdub land, it's a never-ending story. And, so, in that regard, the environment definitely had a direct influence on the creative process there.
Mm.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I asked the question knowing full well what the answer would be. You'd be foolish not to go to a legendary studio like that and not let it influence the album. And the album is just dripping with that soul and that kind of that magic that comes from being in a place with such a rich history like Muscle Shoals, man. So do you have any stories you can tell us about the recording process while you were there?
So first day we just set up our stuff, and at first we were kind of intimidated almost by the studio and its legends and stuff like that. And then we set up our gear, we started sound checking, and first we started playing some of our own songs. And after a while, we just looked at each other and went playing some Otis Rush stuff, because he recorded an album at Fame in the 60s, and some Aretha Franklin stuff and some Wilson Pickett things. And after, we really got into it, and we were like playing all these classic songs that were recorded in that same room in the past like 60 years or so. And I get goosebumps saying it now. That was such a magical feeling. I mean, I can be a little skeptical about it because, I'm a studio engineer myself, so I also know that plugging the right gear in the right player's hands into the right, hook it up to the right things, and the vibe is nice. You can get a great sound in a lot of places, but this was something very special, and I just felt very fortunate to be able to be there. And then, we started recording our own songs, and Ben Tanner, our producer, he was like really open to he really took me very seriously as the producer. So like he'd be sound checking drums, he would turn to me and say like, "What do you think?" And I'd be like, "I'm not sure about the coals on the overhead. I mean, I hear it's the coals, it's the ribbon thing, I get it, but it's not really my thing." And he's like, "Okay, so what would you do?" And I'm like, "I don't know, maybe like a large diaphragm condenser mic, maybe tube condenser mic." He's like, "Let's try it." And so we really made the thing work together, and he was like super, super open about that. And same with guitar mics. Like he would try a bunch of different stuff, and then I would come to the control room, listen, be like, "I'm not sure if these two mics add up. Maybe we should just try like one mic." He's like, "What mic?" I'm like, "The Bayer M69 is like my favorite guitar mic." He's like, "Yeah, sure, let's try it." So for me, that was also like kind of special to work with like a Grammy Award winning producer and be taken seriously. It was a super powerful working relationship, very, very good vibes, and like every night at around like 10 or 11 or sometimes midnight, we would have to say to Ben like, "Hey Ben, we're really tired and hungry. Do you mind if we call it a day?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, sure."
Man. I mean, that's so cool, man. Like, and,
yeah,
and like you said, what a privilege to be able to play those songs in the studio they were recorded in, man. Like, I mean, there are so, I'm kind of the same as you with this. I'm quite materialist about this whole business, but at the same time, man, there is some music ghosts in that space, I can imagine. I mean, I've never been to most of Shoals myself, but I've been to places that have had that energy and played there, and it's a trip, man. So I'm going to kind of paraphrase a question that's come in. So I'm on Deadman Doogie Van Doogerson, which is just the best username.
What? Deadman Doogie Van Doogerson?
yeah.
Nice.
It's so good, man. It wraps around. It's too long for the chat, man. But he's asking who stepped to produce. Obviously, there was a production relationship there.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that, and about your involvement in the engineering production side.
Yeah, so originally the plan was that Chris Robinson was going to produce our album, and we were going to record it in Los Angeles probably. And then we went for Muscle Shoals Sound Studio. That's who we emailed first. And then the thing for me was I was kind of looking forward to working with a producer again, because we usually produce ourselves, and that's really nice and all, but I was looking forward to somebody like being kind of in charge and saying like, "Hey, why don't you try this or try this?" And so around that time, we were like orienting like what kind of studios we were gonna record at. I met Dylan LeBlanc, and I asked him like, "Hey, you grew up in that area. You recorded albums at the Fame Studios, and probably also Muscle Shoals Sound. Do you think that would be a fit for us?" And he was the one who said, "Yeah, but you should also definitely go to Fame, and you should hire Ben Tanner as a producer." And then my mind went to like, Ben Tanner, of course. Like I hadn't thought of him, but he's produced a bunch of albums that I really liked. And so then I got his email address, and then we got in touch and had like a Zoom meeting, and that was like the only thing we really knew of him like personally before we went to work with him. And then he made the whole thing happen where we could record 8 days at Fame and 5 days at Muscle Shoals. because he said like Fame has continuously been an operating music recording studio for like 60 years, whereas Muscle Shoals Sound closed in 1980 and kind of like reopened only like quite recently. So it's Muscle Shoals Sound is like 60% museum, 40% recording studio, whereas Fame is like 90% studio, 10% museum.
Interesting, man. Interesting. And as far as, you know, like you say, working with the producer and coming from being self-produced for so long, I mean, what was different, man? What changed as far as the process? And is there anything you've picked up that you're going to carry forward next time you're self-producing?
Well, Ben wasn't really the kind of producer who was like, play this, play that. I mean, we were still kind of like producing it together, I guess. But he was super invested in getting it to sound right, and like, you know, it was always like tinkering around with stuff and be like, oh, have you checked this little device out? And we'd be like, ooh, and then like he had this crazy synthesizer. We took all this stuff from his studio because he has a studio in the neighboring town of Florence. And we went to his studio first to cherry pick like the best pieces of gear to use on the album. What did I pick up? Well, one of the things, you know, the way he mixed it, the mixing process was quite a long process because, you know, we had to do it like distance. Like he would email a mix and then we would have our list of notes. You know, it's a very tiring process, as you might well know. But the way it turned out is something that I couldn't have like imagined in my wildest dreams. Really, that was really like from where it was when we left the place till the finished mix was something that like boggles my mind. It sounds super 3D. It sounds organic, but also really like big and juicy and dirty. Yeah, and I'm very happy with that.
And well, you should be. I mean, you know, the end result is absolutely killer. You know, I've like I say, I've had the privilege of listening to the whole thing, and it's something, you know, when we get to chat to a lot of guitar players, which is very cool. And I always know if I really like an album when I'm listening to it over and over again. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'll go put that back on. You know, let's go and put that on. And you're absolutely right. You know, it's huge. It's three-dimensional. I wouldn't say it's necessarily modern. It definitely has a very old, very dirty sound, like you say, but it stands up so well against, you know.
There was like a time a couple of years ago where we like gave up on trying to make our stuff sound modern because we realized we don't really listen to a lot of modern music, and the stuff that we do listen to sounds like old stuff. So that's what we love. That's where our heart lies. And if people want to hear like modern rock, well, you know, there's other bands that do that. I think it's really important in this world that you do something that you truly believe in and that you think is the right thing to do. And then there will always be people who like that.
No, I agree. You know, and it's, you know, if you, I think people can tell. I think people can smell it if you're doing something that you don't believe in. You know, if it's contrived, I think people can tell. So,
yeah, I think so too.
On the subject of guitar playing, then, so because we're all guitar players here, we got some questions about playing, about tone. A big topic for the last couple of streams has been on the subject of ear training and the importance of developing your musical ear. We spent a lot of time talking about technique and about theory and all that sort of thing on these streams, but I feel like the ear is something that maybe doesn't get spoken about enough. And something I wanted to chat to you about in particular is the relationship between what you're hearing, what you have going on in your mind, and the gear. Because I know you're a big fuzz guy. I know you're always playing with the guitar's controls.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that process, about how you get your tones, how you get your ideas out, you know, that sort of thing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so what I usually do, I run my guitar through a fuzz. Like I have a bunch of them here on my pedal board, and I could select one with one of these buttons, and that's like I see that as my full range. because the fuzz has like a very saturated sound, of course. But if you use your guitar's volume, you can dial it all the way back to a clean sound. So, for example, I'm running my guitar through like an old Gen tone bender, and if I put my guitar's volume to 2, it's quite clean, right? But when I turn it all the way up, it turns into this. And the cool thing about it is that your relationship with your guitar, although there is a pedal involved, but your relationship with the guitar becomes very like how do you say it, like somatic. So it's a very it really, like, I do feel that it's become an extension of my body, because when I'm like playing and the music is quiet, I can go like, and if I want to fuck things up, I don't have to look at my pedal board and go like, oh, what pedal should I select next? I can just do this. And I really like that. It took of course, it took a lot of years to get the technique under control, but once you have it, it becomes like a second nature, and you can even work with like, presets, like going like, okay, I'm going to turn my neck volume down to 2, and then later when that really heavy part kicks in, I already have my bridge volume set up to like 9, and I can just do crazy stuff. And it's all so yes, you're using a pedal, but it's all here now. And I really like that. So I can walk across the stage. Doesn't really matter where I am on stage. I don't have to be near my pedal board, and I can just do anything I want, like dynamically or saturation wise.
Man, it's a great approach, and it's very it's something a lot of like old school players will talk about. This relationship between, a lot of times it's guys who play single channel amps, with everything on 10 and that sort of deal. But the fuzz is an extension of that. It's a system. So how does that affect you in terms of like your touch when you're going between these kind of levels of fuzz? Do you find it impacts the way that you're playing the guitar? Are you hitting it differently, or is it kind of everything's the same, but this is controlling the level?
That's a good question. I think there is something that happens like psychologically when I turn up the volume. I feel kind of like an anger within. I don't know, it's weird. It sounds weird. It's hard to describe, but when I'm on stage and I have like the loud amps behind me, I just love looking at this one person in the audience and going like, and then turning it up and just like unleashing hell, and that feels super powerful. It feels like I'm some kind of god of thunder or something, and I think, yes, in a way, every time I really turn it up, my picking gets a lot heavier. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can visibly see it, and it becomes, the fact that you're standing up to do it tells you about what's going on. It's like, I mean, Greg Koch talks about this a lot, and he talks about summoning the power of rock and all that sort of stuff, and we love that, because it's something that gets forgotten about, especially in my little world of guitar education, where, it's like we're teaching stuff and it's cool, but like you sometimes get a little bit lost in the weeds, and you kind of forget that it's an instrument to express yourself on, and that goes beyond just the noise you're making. It's a physical experience too. So
definitely, and also like volume does play a role. Like for me personally, the louder I play, and up to a certain point, of course, but the louder I play, the more dynamic I play. And if somebody tells me, I don't do this anymore, but if somebody tells me like turn your amp down, like I just you start going like that in order to achieve that same feeling, but it's not gonna be there. So
That's
it's also
interesting you said
very.
that, because I know you said in an interview recently you'd switched to IEMs fairly recently. I had the same trouble when I switched from using backline to using in-ears. It's a reality of touring at the level that I play at, which is, you know, significantly below what you guys are playing at. But we play with IEMs, we use modelers because we have to. And I do find myself tensing up and hitting harder in an effort to get that power that you're maybe not getting from the amp being there. So how did you deal with that when you guys switched across to being on ears?
So first when we switched to IEMs, I was like, oh, perfect. So now I can use my favorite amp that I use in the studio. This 18-watt Marshall. I don't know if you can see this one.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
I can now use it live because volume doesn't play a role anymore. So I did that for a couple of shows, and I was like, no. I had that same thing, like tensing up, and so then I kind of slowly started adding amps. That sounds so stupid.
No,
and at one point, I just added like a 50-watt Marshall Plexi head. I think it's somewhere. Oh, it's on the ground there. You can't see it. Just to feel that feeling, to experience that feeling of like volume whipping you like from behind. But in the end, if I was not a singer, I would not be playing IEMs because I just love the sound of like the acoustic sound of a guitar amplifier. Also, like when you put the amp on the ground, what you hear on the height that your ears are at is of course very different from what you hear when you put a mic in front of it. Which is funny because that's what you're hearing when you're playing IEMs is the direct sound from the amp.
Yeah, no, definitely, and it is a strange experience, you know. We get asked that quite a lot with the gear stuff that we do. You know, we do a lot of gear reviews, and one of the big questions is, what does it sound like in a room? And I'm like, I have no way of showing you. I can't demonstrate. There is no. You'll have to play one. You know. There's no way to find out. So.
And there's also a little bit of magic, like in hearing a room sound. Like sometimes, don't you have that experience? You go to a live gig and you're like, oh my god, this is incredible. You film it, and then you hear it back on your phone, and it sounds like out of tune, or it's like it doesn't have that same. So there's something magical that is, in a way, like impossible to capture, that happens when you have an amp in a room, and I love that magic stuff.
It's the beauty of live music, though. You know, it's you can try and capture it, but like, you're defeating the purpose. You know, why capture it? To experience it. You know, you want to keep it for posterity. I can think of a few gigs in particular. I think the one for me, I remember going to see Rival Sons for maybe the third or fourth time, and it was in it was the first time I'd seen them in a big room. And like, man, it was the same thing. It was loud amps, it was big fuzzes. It was like, that's the thing, man. So we've got a question, and then I have a question for you too, and then we're going to let you get away, man. But first of all, before we go, Ergo Hog is asking, do you find rolling back the volume with a fuzz is dependent on the type of pickup, as the sound loses body and thickness and becomes very thin? So I guess that's a bigger question about like how different guitars and different fuzzes work together. What's your experience with that?
So my experience is that for some reason, I think if you're working with a fuzz, the lower the output of your pickup, the better. So because, you know, very high output pickups, like, I don't know, some of the stuff that they put like standard in like custom shop Les Pauls or whatever, the output is too high, and the higher the output, the more muddy the sound becomes. And when you send a muddy pickup through a fuzz, it just gets muddier. So in a way, like if you're going the fuzz route, probably like a single coil guitar would be a really nice place to start. But you know, there's something about single coils that just doesn't do the trick for me. So I always look for like the lowest possible output humbuckers or P90s. And yes, but it depends on the fuzz as well. It's almost like esoteric, magical stuff, but with some fuzzes, you roll down the volume and your sound just becomes duller, which I don't like. With all the fuzzes I have here, for some reason, when I turn down the volume, the sound gets cleaner and brighter. And for me personally, that's exactly what I want. Like when I'm maxed out, like on fuzz, I want the sound to be slightly like, well, not dull, but to lose that harshness in the high end. And when I'm playing clean, I want those sparkling highs as much as I could get them. So I don't know why that happens, but it's a very nice like side effect of using a fuzz.
I mean, it's the Hendrix clean sound. It's
Yeah.
kind of, it's not with the fuzz, but it's kind of how Andy Timmons does his clean sound as well. So he'll do it with a blues driver.
Okay.
And that's kind of it's not the most pleasant sound when it's turned up loud, but you know, he backs the volume down and it's magical. So yeah, man, I guess it kind of, for you guys who are listening at home, it goes to show, you know, you got to play with this stuff. Sometimes you have to be fearless and experiment. I'm going to ask you before we go, because you've been super generous with your time, man. It's been great hanging out and talking about guitars.
Dude, likewise. Thank you so much.
Man, it's been a pleasure. I would sit and talk all night, but I got to teach a lesson in a second. But I want to ask you before we go about some advice for guitar players. If you could maybe give one piece of advice for folks who are watching about how they can maybe become a more expressive guitar player or have more fun with the instrument or make better music, what do you think that would be?
Don't listen to other people too much. I mean, like, I often find myself in places where I'm like in need of advice of like specific like things like setup wise, and I cannot find the answers. And I'm like, wow, I delved so deep into this wormhole of idiosyncrasy, of how do you call it? I think it's a very good thing to just be very, well, not stubborn, but what's the English word for it?
I know what you mean, like kind of like single-minded, maybe.
Yeah, find your own way. Like if people say to you, you have to do this or you have to turn down your amp, I mean, don't be a bully, but find your own way. That's truly, like, I think all the guitar players we listen to that we really respect do something that only they do, and the reason for that is that they didn't listen too much to other people. They just took the parts that they could use from what other people were saying or playing or doing, and they made it their own. And you know, it's it can be like a battle, and it can sometimes feel like what am I doing, or am I crazy? Like, am I the only person who's doing this? But just find your own way. Like, if people say to you like, oh, for that kind of music you should really be playing like a Telecaster or a Les Paul, don't listen to them. That's bullshit. You can just find your own thing and be your own person.
Stick with it.
Yeah.
Those wise words, man. Very wise words. Really appreciate it, man. Pablo, it has been so much fun. Thank you so much. The new album will be out in December.
6th.
Dates. December 6th. Dates are worldwide, wherever you are tuning in from the world. If DeWolff come to your town, if they come anywhere near your town, go see them. Just such a great band. I can't wait for you guys to hear the album. It has been so much fun. Thank you so much for your time, Pablo.
Thank you so much, man. It was a lot of fun. All right.
Likewise. All right, take care, man. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye.
Oh man, what a guy, right? Like what a lovely dude. Pablo, a superb guitar player. When you guys hear the album, I forgot that it's not out yet. I've been listening to it so much, I feel like it's been part of my little world for a while, man. When you hear it, you will die. It is so good. So, on to today's lesson, the meat of today's session, so to speak. We've got a little bit of time to talk about this sort of stuff. I want to continue our discussion on hearing what you're playing, on your relationship between your ear and your guitar. So, we talked over the last couple of weeks about ways that you can develop your ear, but I want to ask a question from you guys here, right? And the question is one that is quite pertinent to the stuff we talked about over the previous weeks, which is how well are you able to hear what it is that you're playing? I'm going to pose a little question for you in this one, and we're going to do some jamming, because why wouldn't we do some jamming? We've got our guitars in our hands, of course we're going to jam. So I am going to ask you to do a little something for me. We're going to play back and forward, and we're going to play in the key of E minor, right? So if you are wanting to join in and you don't know what to play, we're going to start with E minor pentatonic. It's the easiest scale in the world. It's all based around fret number 12, and we could play, if we so desired, 15, 12, 15, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 14, 12, 15, 12. However, regular viewers will know all the tricks that we can use to make this more interesting and more exciting. We're not worried about that. We're not worried about how interesting or exciting you can make this. All we're going to do is we're going to try and play some stuff, and then once we're settled in, I'm going to pose a little challenge to you. So I'm going to start. This is our backing track that is available on the Lick Library website, in case you're watching. This is the Led Zeppelin style backing track. It's basically what happens if you mash no quarter and when the levy breaks together, because why not? And put it in the key of E, because E is the best of keys. But I'm going to play something. I'm going to give you guys a chance to play something too. I'll try and restrain myself to be somewhere around this 12th fret position, but you can play whatever you like. I'll go here. I'm going to ask you to play something in the gaps, so you can play whatever you want. But we're going to do something with this in a second, right? This is your space. Okay, I'm going to take another turn. Your turn. Okay, now that you've played something, I assume you have, I'm going to put a challenge to you. And the challenge is this, right? That thing that you just played, whatever that was, now that we've kind of broken down that barrier of, oh, let's jam together, that thing that you just played, are you able to sing that back to me? The thing that you just played? You, dear viewer, that's what I'm talking about. I'll show you what I mean. If I go to this backing track, right, I should, in theory, if I've been intentional about what I'm playing, and I've listened to what I'm playing, I should be able to play pretty much any idea that I'm going to play on the guitar, and then I should be able to recite it, because I should be conscious and aware of the thing that I'm playing. It's harder than it sounds, and I want to know in the comments if you can do this. So let me show you what I'm talking about, and then I'm going to challenge you to do it in the space. So I'll go like this first of all. I'll play a little lower, just for the purpose of singing. So I should be able to sing or something to that effect. I want to know if you can do this. Right? I want to know if you can do this. Now, it doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be on the money. Sacred God Slayer says, played too many notes. The story of my life, right? I play far too many notes all of the time. But let's see if this is something that you guys have. Let's see if it's something that is in your arsenal and in your capacity to do. So, I'm going to play some. I'm going to ask you to play something back to me. So if I go... You take a turn, play me something in the knowledge that you're going to have to sing it back to yourself. And I want to know from you if it's something that you can do. So I'll do the same thing. This time I'm going to play something, I'll sing it back to myself. It's not exact, but you get the idea. You take a turn. Now, this is not the easiest thing to do, as I'm sure you're realizing as we're trying it. But I want to know from you guys, right? Can you do that? Is that something that you can do? Can you recreate the thing that you've just played with your voice? Now, this is not to say that we all have to be great singers. It's not how this works. But it is to suggest that if we're being conscious about what we're playing, we should be able to play or recite the thing that we've just played because we were in it. We were in it in the moment. Now, this extends a little bit further, right? Marcin says, yep, got it, good man. I want to know from the comments if any of you are struggling with this, right? Now, I'm going to extend this a little bit further, right? And I'm going to see if we can play something, and rather than sing it back to ourselves, I'm going to see if we can play it and then play it back to yourselves. So this is, I guess it falls into the repetition thing, which is something Chris Buck talks about an awful lot, which is this idea of repeating things. And I know Adam Neely's talked about quite a lot about repetition, legitimizing. And we've chatted about it on a stream before. We've chatted about all these great guitar solos that repeat and make use of kind of motif and motivic development. I'm going to see if I can play some stuff, and I'm going to see if I can repeat near enough what it is that I'm playing. And I want you to do the same. So if I start here, I might play... You take a turn and see if you can play something and have it repeat back to you. See if you're able to recall the same information when you're playing and play it back. Not the easiest thing in the universe to do. I'm sure you will agree. I'm sure you will agree. Now, Sacred Godslayer has said something really interesting here, which is, if I know that I'm going to have to sing it later, I unconsciously sing it in advance in my head when I'm going to play. And that is not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing. Now, what this exercise does, this business of having to sing something back to you, is it encourages you to be present and to be conscious in your improvisation. Now, we talked about singing the things that you're playing in a previous stream where we did the George Benson thing, where we sing and we play along. But this allows us to be very intentional about our choices, which is a crucial part of developing your musical ear. Are you actually able to hear what it is that you're playing, or do you switch your ears off while you play? Now, we've all done this. I do this all the time, right? I am definitely not a saint here. And I think a lot of players do. You know, Carl Verheyen has talked about this, where he said, you know, we're only really truly improvising about 30% of the time in terms of like generating legitimately new material. And sometimes we switch off and we let our fingers walk, which is fine. It's okay. Sometimes that's how it works, right? Sometimes the guitar leads us places. Sometimes we're able to take command. But I would encourage you, when you're working on your ear, to try and take command of your playing as much as you possibly can. I feel like it develops a more complete relationship with the guitar, let's say, and it develops your ability to respond to ideas in real time. So here's the next exercise. I'm going to play some stuff, and I'm going to go listening for little motifs. And I'm going to go listening for things that I might want to develop. And I'm going to ask you to do the same. So let's see what comes out, right? I'm going to go back to the same track, because the track is a lot of fun. I'm enjoying the way this track sounds. Kind of wish I had some big fuzzes now, but, you know, well, I've got some fuzzes. None of them are particularly big, but they're all a bit weird, and I'm not going to play them because they might make strange noises. Who knows? But if I go something like this... That was quite cool. I like that too. That little... Well, back to that idea. That was fun. And now we have a bit of finger walking at the end, but I'm going to turn this on you guys. I'm going to ask you to place some ideas in these spaces, find a motif, and then develop it. And then I'm going to pause you. So you take a turn, and we need to find something within the thing that you're playing that's cool. Whatever the first cool idea is that you get onto, grab it. And carry on over this track, over this little bit at the end. You can go as long as you want here. But here's an important thing. Whatever that idea was, whatever this motif you've developed is, you're going to need to remember it, because I'll want it back in a second. So your motif that you've developed, I know my motif. I'm going to take over, and I'm going to play my motif for a little bit. So I'm going to go like this. Okay, it's your turn again, but play me that motif that you played just a second ago. Now, hopefully you're playing along with your guitar here, otherwise you're going to be sat going, what are we talking about? But that's fine, you should be playing your guitar, you know how this works now, I'm sure. Were you able to carry on that motif after a little bit of a gap, after a little bit of a break? Now, this is interesting in and of itself because this hints at a practice thing, a practice concept that I've talked about with some of my students recently, which is the concept of interleaved practice. And this is my attempt to extrapolate this out to ear training and motivic development. This idea of being able to hang on to a motif after you've played something and when somebody else has started playing something else, in this case me, blustering over the top of you. So what the concept of interleaved practice is it's the idea that by taking several exercises, let's say for example you have like a finger exercise, then you have a different finger exercise. If you practice one and then immediately practice the other, your brain has to hang on to the corrections that you've made in the first exercise while you play the second exercise, which requires a little bit more computational power, let's say. But then in turn with that, what that means is it sticks a little better. It sticks a little bit harder. So these are some ideas that you can use to make sure that you're really hearing yourself as you're playing. But there are some other ideas too. I also want to ask you guys if you ever record yourself while you're playing. Is this something that you do? Do you ever record yourself and sit and analyze things? It's worth doing. Definitely worth taking a look at. Guys, we have breezed through this at a rapid pace because I had way too much fun sat talking to Pablo, and I would just sit and chat with him all day. But I did promise you a lesson, and a lesson we did. Here we go. Ergo Hog says, I would answer that with picking up on those semitone slides. Nice. We like a little bit of that. That is very cool. Our friend Sam Junior Music has an interesting comment. He says, something I've been learning, but I think it's become pretty interesting in my playing. When playing a solo, you definitely should synchronize with the drum beats. Now, that is very interesting in and of itself. This idea of what do you do with the rest of the band? Like, what do you do in terms of what you're listening to? Do you listen to the drummer, or you listen to the bass player? What are you syncing up with? We had a great comment from earlier before from Deadman Doogie Van Dugerson, once again. Says, stepping in front of our bass player's amps seemed to get me tighter in the groove. Says he's never tried IEMs, but that is very interesting. It's a very interesting concept. Folks, we're going to take some questions, but here is a good one from Marcin. He says, recording yourself is a real eye/ear opener, as is, I don't know if you've done this before, but as is playing with IEMs. Now, we talked about this in our chat with Pablo just a second ago. The idea of playing with in-ears. Now, I've got my IEMs in because I don't want some horrible spill from the monitors while I'm interviewing somebody. But I play live with IEMs, and this is something that is very, very revealing when it comes to your own playing. I think about it as playing like under a microscope. And if you guys don't spend any time playing in headphones, this is perhaps something that you should spend some time with to really kind of get your playing like piped directly into your ears, if that makes sense. So if you don't do this already, I would encourage you to practice with headphones and to get used to this idea that your guitar is stark and direct and right in there, and really hear what it is that you're playing. Really pay attention to the way you're striking a note, the way your tone sounds, how the relationship is with the dynamics, with the relationship with the groove. Are you really, really in time? Are you pushing and pulling? It's quite easy with monitors to kind of lose track of this. And what you can do is a fun thing to play with is to take this interleave concept a little bit further and to have your studio monitors on, if you play with studio monitors, or have an amp in front of you, and then quickly switch between headphones and amplifier. So for example, if I'm playing here, I might do something like this. And I've done this before, and it's quite entertaining and enlightening. So what I might do, I might have my headphones handy, and I may throw them on and play with headphones. And get that real microscope effect. Then I might take them off. And enjoy how nice everything sounds. And then I may throw them on. I have sat and done this because I'm a bit too into this sort of thing, to be honest, but it's a fun practice thing to play with. You know, this idea of you know, how closely are you listening to what you're playing? How are you putting some separation between yourself and the sound, or are you piping the sound directly into your ears and confronting the way that you actually sound, if that makes sense? Now, it's not necessarily the most pleasant experience to confront the little mistakes and scuffs and bits and bobs that you make when you play, but we're human. We all do this, right? It's normal. I do this for you guys every week. I sit and play all sorts of gaffes all on camera because why not? It's part of the fun, right? We're people. We're people playing guitar at the end of the day. I think it's definitely something worth playing with. We got a great one from Sacred Godslayer saying, Paul Gilbert is a proponent of locking on the drums. Now, what he said with this, which struck me when I started playing bigger venues, if that makes sense, bigger venues. When I started playing larger rooms, I noticed that if I played, well, I thought about something Paul Gilbert said, and what he said was, if you play in time, you sound louder. And I thought about that quite a lot when I found myself getting a bit drowned in big venues. And what I've noticed is, when you're on stage and everything is loud and everything is chaotic, if you sync up, it sounds louder. I'm going to see if I can demonstrate this. I don't know if I'll be able to, but I'll try my best. So I'm going to turn the monitors up a little bit for myself. And I'll play a wee bit with that same track. But I'll kind of bluster a wee bit and we'll see what comes out. And then I'll try and sync and see if it comes out a little bit more together. So if I go... It's fine. Now, even in those faster moments, where I'm focusing my attention on time and focusing my attention on really trying to sync, or trying to really sync a subdivision to what's going on in the groove, the playing seems to speak a little better. Hopefully you guys could hear the change there when I started playing in time and started hearing a bit more, I guess a bit more urgency, or a bit more kind of like cogency in the tone, if that makes sense. So we got some other cool questions going on here. Here's one from Response Audio. It says, regarding Pablo, riding the volume and tone up and down for different sounds would create more natural variations in the tones compared to just switching presets on the pedal, wouldn't it? Yes, actually, you know, that's a really good point. It says, you rarely go to the exact same position on the knobs, for sure. I think it is, in addition to that, it's a more organic way of doing it. So For me, I don't really ride the volume as much. I tend to ride the pickup selector like crazy, as I'm sure you guys have noticed, right? So there was several comments on some review videos I did like way back in the day, which was like take a shot for every time he switches pickups. I'm like, yeah, guilty. So that has become an organic part of my playing, and it's become part of the way I want to hear certain notes. I want to hear certain notes being fat. I want to hear certain notes scream. I want to hear like a liquidy quality on some pitches. I want to hear more of a gnarly kind of cocked wah quality on some other pitches. I usually get that with my pickup selector. And to do that with my feet feels a little alien, whereas to do it with my hands, it's no different to picking harder or picking less hard or angling the pick more. So I guess paying attention to the tone like that is part of what we're talking about here. So this, again, I'll spend... I'll spend forever riding that pickup selector, and I guess that's kind of my equivalent. Now, you don't have the same degree of, I guess the same degree of continuous variation that you get when you ride a volume control. That is something that's definitely interesting to play with. For some reason, I just don't seem to find that cropping up in my own playing, but the symbiotic relationship between guitar, gear, and player, it's kind of all part of this ear training thing that we're all hinting at here. Folks, we are running clean on time, but I'm going to answer a couple of quick questions going on here. Timothy Appling is saying, are your IEMs hooked up before or after your effects? For me, it's always after, because I want to hear the effects while I'm playing. It influences the way I play. So if I have delay, for example, I'll play differently to if I am playing without. I'm playing a dry sound. However, what I have done sometimes is I've run a dry sound, so I'm gesturing with a ruler. Sometimes I'll have a dry sound that I'll send just to my drummer. So maybe he doesn't want to hear the effects. He just wants to hear the dry sound. No problem. I'll send that to him. But for me, it's always hooked up like after the effects. I want to hear the effects going on there. So we've got some love for the pickup selector. Don't worry, it's very robust, and my soldering iron is here just in case something goes wrong. I'm quite capable of changing a pickup selector, although I wasn't always, and I would break them fairly reg. But yeah, I'm used to changing them now. Helmet Strap says, Joe Bonamassa has a video showing how he uses the volume tone control to get so many different sounds from a guitar. If that's the one I'm thinking of, it's the one where he talks about how to sound like Page Clapton and Jeff Beck with just the controls on a Les Paul. It's a great video. It is really, really cool. Definitely worth paying attention to. And to notice not just how the pickup selector and the controls affect things, but how that influences his touch and how he plays differently with all these different setups. It's a really, really cool, very interesting video. Folks, we've run out of time. We've run out of time. I would sit and do this all night if I could, but I gotta go. Our hour is over. Folks, it's been a lot of fun. We really enjoyed hanging out with Pablo today. I love having guests on these streams. So, guys, if that's something you're into, don't forget to share this with your guitar playing friends. If you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe icon. It has been a great deal of fun. If you want more lessons, go to licklibrary.com. If you want news, reviews, interviews, gear, all of that good guitar playery stuff, go to guitartractsmagazine.com. My name's been Nick Jennison. It has been the Monday Guitar Show. It has been a lot of fun. I think I'm going to play out on the same track. That track's a little bit worn now, but do I play on the Joe Bonamassa track? I'll play on the Bonamassa track, which sounds very similar and is next door to it on my my project. So I'm going to play on that one, I think. For you guys who've won strings, strings will be out in the post this week, I promise. We're just waiting on hearing on some of our winners' addresses so I can get on down to the post office with some strings. But I'll be sending them to you this week. We'll be back next week with another stream. It'll be the final one on our current topic before we move on to something completely different next month. My name's Nick Jennison. I will see you guys next week. Let's play some more.